Thanks for staying with us right here on Sunrise as we continue this morning. Now, choosing to have a baby is one of the biggest decisions a person will ever have to make in their lifetime. Therefore, the 9 months leading up to childbirth can be one of the most exciting and fulfilling times in a woman's life. It is vital that you become informed about the many aspects of pregnancy. Joining us this morning to speak more about this is midwife Sister Lillian Hime, and of course we're having a conversation with you as well on 011-447-1620, and we're taking your comments as well as on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Sister Lillian, thanks very much for joining us this morning to kick off this conversation. As we're talking about Pregnancy Awareness Week, why do we still need to have this Awareness Week, and what's the significance of this Awareness Week?
Well, you know, just about anything's got a week or a day of awareness nowadays. And it's probably a jolly good thing with pregnancy because it's become almost like a disease or a medical condition. And I think it should be a time for celebrating the start of new life. And could there be anything more important than that? How we're going to do it is so important.
So you said it almost become a disease, like or a medical condition. But how do we change the mindset about that? And what are the factors that are actually influencing us to think and look at it that way?
Well, I suppose it is the medical model, and it is in an attempt to address issues which are big issues of mortality and disease and so on. But we have to put into perspective that probably at least 90% of women could have a totally normal, natural pregnancy if we will just allow it to happen. When there are problems, you're probably in no better place than in South Africa to have them attended to. But all those women who could have and should have a natural pregnancy and birth, they must start realizing that the power is theirs. Their hormones make it possible to have a good natural experience. This is about having a baby. It's the next generation that you're delivering to this world.
Okay, so now the maternal mortality rate is obviously the reason why there's such a concern. The World Health revealed that it has dropped almost, by 50% between 1990 and 2013. And this has to do with the position on the 7 points for a healthy pregnancy. What are some of those things that have made this to drop, and what do we need to look out for?
Obviously nutritional status is a very important one, but we mustn't forget that the original medicine is food. And if you are eating healthily, then that's already good. Mostly in pregnancy, you need a bit of help from prenatal supplements, but don't think everything comes out of a bottle. If you're not eating sufficient fruit, vegetables, legumes, then that's not a cornerstone to health. The other thing is to have regular checks. However, please, I would appeal to my medical colleagues, don't make women think it's a disease where they have to have that high-tech a medical checkup, because most problems in pregnancy come from a woman's increasing anxiety. Anxiety will go away if you make her feel she will recognize the symptoms of anything going wrong.
But the reality is that there's a lot of chronic illnesses, that people are living with, from diabetes to hypertension, even possible with like HIV before you're pregnant, and the impact of that to your health when you're pregnant and how that can affect you carrying your pregnancy.
But now, like diabetes, hypertension and so on, although there are instances of both of those conditions particular to pregnancy, they are also lifestyle diseases. And that is why eating healthily, exercising enough, being active, but being positive up here as well is just as important. HIV, we understand very differently nowadays, and we know that you can actually still be fairly healthy with it. You've got to do all the things
and mother-to-child transmissions have also decreased.
Precisely. And also you can give natural birth, and also you can and should breastfeed your baby. I mean, the baby of a mom with HIV needs her breast milk almost more than any other baby.
Okay, so let's talk about the myths, and which is one of the conversations that me and you had, and then I was like, can we bring this in? For a black woman in modern South Africa, one of the things that they have to deal with is culture and tradition versus modern day medicine, medicine, and in terms of like having a child, that's just too much to deal with, and it could contribute to some of that anxiety that you spoke about. How do you know that this is good for me from the cultural and traditional point of view, and this is what I need to take from the medical point of view? Because there's a lot that also get told to you, especially for first-time moms. It can really go haywire.
Yes. Well, we certainly see that in South Africa, how black women, especially if they've grown up slightly outside of city life, when they come, I mean, city life's already quite highly stressful, isn't it?
Yes.
And then they'll often remember what their mums and their grandmas told them. And some of those substances are perfectly healthy. But we must understand that herbal substances, just like drugs and medicines, can have side effects. And it's not as easy as saying this one's good, that one's bad, because it depends on your individual susceptibilities to substances, the purity of the substance you've got. So I believe in liberating these things out into the open so that one can assess any individual substance for its safety. But what that is telling us is that women who are suddenly facing cultural challenges mustn't throw the baby out with the bathwater.
With the bathwater, yes.
From their past. Who's anybody to say what is good and what is bad? There's good and bad in everything. Take what makes you feel better. Talk to a practitioner about it. Find a practitioner that has got understanding, cross-cultural understanding, and then use that. Because many women are using substances and other things along with more Western approaches. And it can work, but it's best that everybody's in the know what's being done.
So, my doctor says I can have a glass of wine, when I am pregnant. Some doctors, recommend wine. Others are saying, my mother would say I shouldn't eat fish. And then I'm like, omega-3, why not?
And all the things the fish was exposed to as well.
Yeah.
No. When it comes to things like that, I think it's good to go back to basics. And actually, a woman has got a very good GPS when she's pregnant.
Yes.
And if you feel you cannot eat something, it's one of the protection mechanisms that Mother Nature gives you. Think about that and listen to it. Because different people, once again, have different susceptibilities. There are some cornerstone things that you should be careful of. And, alcohol is probably one of them. Maybe one glass won't do anything, but we don't know for sure what the safe limit is. And why would a woman want alcohol when she's pregnant? Probably because of that anxiety reason. So maybe find a safer homeopathic remedy maybe that can help you with anxiety. But also probably if you have had, because many women don't know that they're pregnant until a few weeks down the line, and maybe they have. But if you're planning, rather stay away, not only for levels of alcohol going through to the baby, but because it does leave your body quite acidic, and that's possibly not a good thing.
Okay, so giving birth, one of the things that I know is that as South Africa, we have one of the highest numbers when it comes to like C-sections, and trying to bring that number down. That's also a battle between the traditional way of thinking, which is natural birth, and then versus the medical way, with what's happening in hospitals. The risks involved, when does actually you thinking about giving birth start? Because does it start when you first find out you're pregnant, or is it something that you need to consider in the middle? And how do you address such things?
It's so often something women and couples don't even remotely consider when they're planning to have a baby. They'll think more about what they'll put in the baby's nursery than how they're going to give birth. Think about how women plan weddings. I mean, so meticulously, and they put so much money into it. And yet when it comes to birth, and then you fall into it suddenly further on in your pregnancy, or maybe after you've gone to classes. Yes, think about it, read about it. You can overread, you can overthink. You must know that your body is built to do this. You are designed for it. It is not necessary to have the rate of caesarean section that we've got in South Africa, which varies from anything between 30 to 40% and 90%, 99%.
99%, yeah.
Yes, depending on where you're having your baby. The World Health Organization says 10 to 15% max.
Because it's emergency,
yes.
Yeah.
And they say that about any set of circumstances. So don't let anybody tell you when there's HIV or anything else, that's a reason to have a high C-section rate. I have some sympathy for my obstetric colleagues because if something ever were to go wrong and they haven't thrown the big guns at you, they are going to be in trouble. So they think, well, let's just go to the big guns straight away.
Yeah.
And many midwives are thinking that way as well. But please don't. If you liberate your pregnancy and birth hormones by being less anxious, by being an empowered woman, by believing in yourself, those hormones will at least 90%, probably more like 99% of the time, carry you through to a natural birth.
Okay.
And natural birth simply means going with what your body is saying. It's not lying strapped down on your back in a hospital
In a
bed.
hospital, screaming your lungs out.
Yes.
Yes.
You must make low sounds.
Low
Don't scream high-pitched, low.
Low sound.
Moo
Okay.
like a cow.
All right. I think we're going to have to leave it at that, Sister Lillian. And thank you so much for that conversation, for as you straddle between understanding Western medicine and, of course, doing things the natural way. As you want to have a healthy pregnancy, get as much information as you can at this Pregnancy Awareness Week. Thanks for joining us. And Mark is standing by to bring us the latest stories making headlines this morning.